How you doing?
Good. You?
Great. So today we're going to talk about a monumental lawsuit regarding the real estate industry, which can completely change real estate as we know it for everybody, not just the real estate agent. You're
Oh,
talking for consumers, for everybody, for buyers, sellers, everybody.
absolutely.
Um, so you've been in the real estate industry much longer than I, but I did want to say that we are connected to it. It would affect us as well from a business point of view because we are in real estate.
It's going to affect everybody.
Everybody. And the last thing I wanted to throw in, and then I'll give you the baton, is
Oh,
that in a lot of the research and the videos I saw there's on YouTube regarding these lawsuits, there's a lot of bias because most of the people talking about this are the people that are going to be financially negatively affected by these lawsuits. So there is a lot of bias out there, and I wanted to throw that out there and disclose that because there are other angles. At the end of the day, you got to protect the consumer, but a lot of the arguments seem to be very sided towards why this lawsuit is very negative. And I did want to say 10% of home sales in the United States in 2021 were for sale by owner. So I just want to say this to open it up.
what was the percentage of for sale by owner?
10% of home sales in the United States were for sale by owner in 2021 because we're going to be talking about the real estate commissions, and the lawsuit is to take away the buyer's agent side commission. So can you open up, Pablo, and share how does a real estate agent get paid commission, and how is this lawsuit, why is it so monumental for the industry?
Okay. Um, Normally, there is 6% commission, okay, that is charged for the sale of a property, and usually the the seller pays for the 6% commission. You know, it's negotiable. It could be 5, 6. The standard, let's say, it's 6%. Most realtors, go with the 6%, and so do the sellers, and they pay 3% to the buying agent, 3% to the selling agent. That's how the 6% gets split.
So the listing agent that is ready to sell a house agrees with the seller of the house,
Correct.
and they say, I'm going to get paid, let's say 3%, and the person who brings the buyer
Right.
will get, the agent that brings the buyer will also get paid
3%.
3%. That can vary, but that's how it works.
Maybe 5%, but it's usually a 6% standard.
Okay.
And the lawsuits that we're talking about are referring to the buying agent's commission of the so-called 3%. So these lawsuits, by the way, started in 2019. Okay? Now, it's just interesting that on Monday we did Law 24, was it? Yes, Law 24, which is, recreating yourself. And
Law 25.
Or Law 25?
Yeah.
Recreating yourself. And it's interesting because we're saying, hey, we need to recreate ourselves, where this is recreating yourself from the forces are coming from externally, not internally.
We're being forced to adapt.
We're being forced to adapt because this is going to change the industry completely. Okay?
Absolutely.
So anyway, the lawsuit started in 2019, and apparently there are 2 lawsuits, and they were brought about by homeowners. And essentially what they're saying is, hey, we don't think that it's fair that we should pay 3% commission for the person that's coming in to buy our property.
For the agent.
Yeah.
And these lawsuits, who's being sued, who's suing?
Okay, well, one of the lawsuits was brought forth by Sitzer and Burnett, and then the other lawsuit was brought forth by another person named, I believe, Morel, and they were both filed in 2019.
And these are class action lawsuits.
They received class action status a little bit further down the line. So what happened was that they sued a real estate company called Anywhere Real Estate.
And when you say they sued, you're talking about
Sitzer
group?
and Burnett, initially Sitzer and Burnett, and Mr. Morel.
But they're representing the sellers.
Yeah, they're
A group
suing,
of sellers.
saying that they're suing, saying that the commissions that are made by the real estate agent that represents the buyers, they don't want to pay it. Okay, essentially. Then, as the time goes by, there's been some updates, and they received this particular
Class action
lawsuit a little bit later on.
The status.
Okay, in 2022, in April of 2022, the Sitzer and Burnett case, would receive certification for the class action. Okay, so that's huge now. Okay, and I believe in 2020, let me see, the other ones also received notification of class action. And as a matter of fact, they're coming up to court to trial, I believe, this month, Monday actually. So it's very interesting. It's going to change.
October 16th, right?
October 16th.
October 16th in the U.S. District Court in Kansas City, Missouri.
Exactly.
The first case, because there's two cases.
Correct.
Currently. But I did just want to be clear on this. This is a class action. These are sellers suing several defendants, which the defendants are the people being sued for these for the commissions. These sellers, I guess, want their commissions back that they paid to the buying side, or there's some sort of suit for that.
Correct.
And who are they selling? Who are they suing? They're suing the National Association of Realtors, NAR, which has over 1.5 million members,
Yes.
real estate agents. They're suing home service. They're suing the group is called Anywhere Real Estate.
Correct.
With the Home Services of America, Remax, Keller Williams Realty, and Anywhere Real Estate includes Coldwell Banker, Century 21, Corcoran Real Estate, ERA, Sotheby's Real Estate, and more.
Yes.
So they're pretty much suing all these huge brokerages that you see constantly, people putting their advertising. They're suing almost everybody. I mean, I'm sure there's more, but these are massive brokerages.
Yes. And Anywhere Real Estate settled for $83.5 million.
In September of 2023.
Right.
I think that they're waiting for approval on that.
They're waiting for approval on that.
So the final details on like the actual settlement, I think, are being hashed out. But that's the number that was thrown out, yeah.
You're right. But yes, $83.5 million. And I believe that Remax is also trying to settle for $55 million. Okay.
So what does that mean when they're settling? When Remax has to pay $55 million, who's paying that?
Well, Remax capitalization, okay, I took a quick peek, and if I remember correctly, I think it's somewhere around $462 million, the market cap. So
it's a publicly traded company.
Right. So Remax is settling for $55 million, which roughly about 10%. And Anywhere Real Estate is settling for $83.5 million, which their market capitalization is somewhere around $842 million. So that's also more or less like 10%. Okay. Now, the National Association of Realtors, as far as I know, has decided to fight the lawsuit. So it's very interesting because this is going to be monumental. This is going to change the entire working field, because I believe that Remax said, hey, listen, we're going to go ahead and settle, but we're going to change our practices. Now, nobody knows exactly yet what changing their practices means. Okay? But it's definitely going to be different moving forward. And I tried to get as much information as I could, to bring it to the podcast. Yeah. And there's a few people out there that think that the National Association of Realtors trying to fight this thing could potentially be detrimental to them.
Bankrupt them.
It could bankrupt them.
Right.
So it's very interesting.
Yeah.
But let me give you a little bit of history first. Prior to, when you become a realtor and you take a listing, you have to put it in the MLS. The MLS is the multiple listing service. Okay? And you just have to put it there in order to market the property. Okay? And the National Association of Realtors, there is something called a participation policy, which is as soon as you list a property with the MLS, you list a compensation for the buyer's agent. It has to be disclosed.
And the MLS, for those that don't know, is the multiple listing service. So when they say, hey, that property's on the market, typically they're referring to it's on the MLS.
Correct.
It's public data. And then Zillow and Redfin and all these companies pull data from the MLS.
Correct. Now, the MLS, the multiple listing service, has dues that we have to pay as realtors. And the National Real Estate Association also has dues that we have to pay as realtors every year. Okay? The issue now is also, and we're jumping all over the place, but this is going to change everything. Now, will there be opportunities out there? Yeah, there will be opportunities out there. Okay? You just have to really dig in and do the best job you possibly can, representing either your buyer or your seller, and create value. Because what's happening here now is that apparently Redfin said, hey, we're not going to require our agents to, have to be with the National Association of Realtors to participate with them. And Remax also came out and said, okay, we also are not going to require our agents to be with the National Association of Realtors. So if that is not required anymore, that is going to be a huge economic hit for the National Association of Realtors, which in 2021, they collected approximately $326 million gross from all the agents' participation. And in 2022, they collected about $207 million gross. Okay? Now, I know that they do a lot of things for us, like in the back end, in the background, but
yeah.
I'm not quite sure exactly what they do for us, and so that's going to be a big fight. They're going to have to explain how they bring value to realtors.
And the National Association of Realtors has over 1.5 million real estate agents. I read a stat. We'll link all the sources. We'll link below. That's another thing. In a lot of the research, people don't list their sources, but there's over 3 million real estate agents in the United States. So not everybody's part of this National Association of Realtors and pays dues.
Well,
and now if Redfin, which is a brokerage, people think of Redfin like just to see the property and see pictures and all that, but they actually are a brokerage now. They have Redfin agents, and same with Zillow.
Right.
They're brokers.
So, I don't know where it's all going to go, but to have things on the multiple listing service is, for me is I would say is a good thing because it allows me to see what the property sold for. We have all this data. We can check, what year it was done, what year it was sold for, so forth and so on. And it gives you like an idea, and you're able to get comparables and all these kinds of things, right? So prior to this, the way it used to be is that buyers and sellers dealt directly with each other. Okay?
Right. That was very common before.
Yeah.
I mean, you've bought property like that.
Right.
We've bought property directly from the owner.
Right. And so, but what a lot of people are saying is, look, some people, if they get lucky, they get a good price for the property, but then is anybody being taken advantage of? Like, or you sell the property for a lot more. So a buyer, not necessarily knowing, could pay a lot more for a property than what it's truly worth, or vice versa. And so this was prior to all these listing services coming on board, which I believe they came on board post World War II when things got a little bit more organized. And then the standard became 6% for the person that was selling the property would pay 6%, and then 3% again would go to
each side.
To each
Typically,
side.
yeah.
Yeah. But since the internet has come on board, let's say since 2000 or early 2000s, the perception up there is that because a lot of people, find their own properties, that why should,
they pay, why should they have to pay the buying agent a commission?
Right.
Which the seller's the one that's paying that.
Correct.
Right.
And so the perception is that a lot of the realtors are not working as hard as before, because before it used to be that you would take one listing, okay, and you would set in an open house, do an open house for the neighborhood, and just sit there and wait for a buyer to come in, okay? And so once you sold that property, you went on to the next one. With the onset of all this technology, that has allowed a lot of realtors to list more than one property and close maybe 5 transactions in 1 month, or 12 transactions. So technology has advanced a lot, where the realtor, the perception is, hey, look, you press a few keys here and there, and there isn't a lot that you're doing, so why should we pay so much money for the listing? And so thereby, that's the mentality, and the lawsuits have been brought forth.
And on that point, when somebody's selling a property, they also have to account for the selling costs, closing costs. So commissions to the real estate agents, but also the costs of selling the property, like escrow, if depending on the state you're in, right? There's different costs. But here in California, so if you were to go directly and you find a buyer directly, they say they're thinking, I would be able to forego a lot of the costs of the disposition of this property.
Correct.
Because I can go direct.
Correct. So
and there's truth to that. There is some truth to that.
Absolutely. I mean, why? If someone wants to sell the property, let's say off market, meaning they don't want to list it, they don't want to go on the multiple listing service, or anything like that, why shouldn't they be allowed to? So we're in a free country. There's liberty.
10% of sales are for sale by owner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. They, definitely. The other side of the coin is that potentially, if you don't know, some people are going to be seeking realtors because they're going to feel comfortable that somebody that's a good business person will be representing them and take care of them in the process of the negotiation.
Their best interest, and actually negotiate because they know the ins and out of the business.
And they can get comparables and so forth. Now, it's true that the internet provides a ton of information.
A lot of people can do that on their own.
They can do it on their own.
Whether they can negotiate as good as somebody who's, let's say, doing this day in, day out. And one of the things I was listening to was you have different quality of agents in anything. Buyer's agents, some are really, really good, and some of them can actually hinder the purchase of a property, right? because they're not that good. And some of them can actually facilitate the closing of a property because they're that good. You could say the same thing about the listing side, but nobody's questioning right now the listing side. This is pertaining only to the buying agent commission.
Correct.
For the moment.
And like in any business, there are some people that are very good and some people that are not.
Right.
And so, you find that in every particular, it doesn't matter where you go, whether it's the health industry or the food industry or whatever, okay? So you just have to find a good realtor.
So why is this so monumental? Why is it such a big deal that, let's say, now that these companies, these brokerages, Anywhere Real Estate, Remax, now that these are offering settlements, meaning that they're admitting to a certain degree, when you settle with somebody, you're kind of admitting they're right. At least the way I think of it, just my 2 cents on it. Let's say that the buyer's agent commission gets wiped out. Why is that so monumental for the industry?
Well, who's going to represent the buyer?
Okay.
Is the buyer going to be representing themselves? And there's a lot of stuff.
That's one option.
That's one option.
The buyer would represent themselves.
Oh,
The other option I've seen was they would hire a buyer's agent, and they would have to pay the commission to the buyer's agent. That they
Themselves.
choose themselves.
Yeah.
Or, and it's not possible right now, but it's financed through the lending side,
Yeah.
commission.
Right.
Or you go directly to the listing agent.
To the listing
And you have
agent.
them represent you.
Yeah.
So now they're doing a dual agency, double ending, they call it. Is that listing agent, do they have your best interest? Are they going to negotiate for you depending on the agent, the way that a buyer's agent would, who's not representing also the listing side?
Yes, it's going to change the landscape no matter what.
Yeah.
A lot of people, for the longest time, I've been hearing a lot of the, mostly the old timers,
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, you know what? The realtors are a thing of the past.
Right.
We're not going to be around for too much longer, because technology is going to replace us, and also because the public is a lot more savvy because of the fact that you have so much information available in the internet." I don't think that realtors are going to be gone, but I think that the number of realtors is going to diminish quite a bit. Because if you think about it, I believe that the average income for realtors for the year is around $54,000. I believe that's the average income for realtors. Okay? $54,000.
That seems high, actually.
It's not something that someone can become rich, super wealthy on. And so, let's say it's 50,000, but I believe it's around 54,000, the average income for realtors. I hope I'm not mistaken on that, but you're looking it up, so that's good. But I would say there's only like 5% or 6% of the total number of realtors that are really truly making heavy duty bucks.
Yeah, something like 10%. I mean, this is in any
Six-
industry.
right.
10% of the
industry is making the higher
is making 90% of the income.
of the income.
It's
Exactly.
usually those numbers, but we'll double check.
Did you find that?
Let me see here. So they just keep talking about the overall average for the state. So how much do California real estate agents? California, very different, this market, than
The rest of the country.
the rest of the country. The average salary for a California real estate agent can vary widely. The biggest factor is their location. According to Zip Recruiter, the overall average for the state is around 103,000 annually.
Really? Well, that's way higher than I.
This means California agents rank 7th in the nation. It's saying, as we said, the numbers, for example. Yeah.
That's a lot higher than.
Yeah, that's way higher. This is not, but this
No,
is saying
I-
the average in California.
I can't tell you where exactly I've read it, but I know that I've read that Well, anyway,
Look, it seems way higher. But the lowest ranking real estate agent's salary comes in at 24,970. This is based on fastexpert.com. These are generally new agents, part-time, lower income, blah, blah, blah. So it's got to be somewhere in between.
but the thing is, I'm guilty of not knowing exactly, what the National Association of Realtors does for us. I know they do a lot of legislative things. Okay, I know they really stand up for us. I know that during COVID, I believe they were a strong force in allowing us to be. Remember, only the businesses that were so-called essential
Yeah.
were able, and I believe that they were able to obtain that for us. I hope I'm not mistaken on some of these things. Remember, we are not experts. These are our 2 cents. Okay.
But it's not only NAR, the National Association of Realtors. It's these brokerages as well that are getting sued.
Right.
So in
but
the event NAR is no longer around.
right. But what I'm trying to say is, because if NAR fights this in court and loses, they could potentially be out of
Gone.
business, gone. Okay. So what is the value that NAR brings to us? Because
To real estate agents.
yeah, I pay my dues and I get so caught up in all the deals and this and that I know they're doing legislative work for us and I think they have our backs, but I never really truly looked at what exactly our money is getting for us. And now these lawsuits are bringing this into view. And,
Yeah.
I don't know why they made, so much money in 2021. I mean, the drop between 2021 and 2022. In 2021, the gross.
Well, and that's the other thing. There are other lawsuits that we won't talk about here against the National Association of Realtors also. Right? So, but these lawsuits that we're sticking to today pertain to commissions.
Yeah.
And
But it is a big problem. It's a
Yeah.
big problem because Redfin has said that their agents no longer are going to be required to join
the
NAR,
Yeah.
and Remax agents are saying, "Hey, we're not going to require to join NAR." So that's going to be already a huge hit,
Yeah.
economically
This is
speaking.
a lot of bad publicity for
Yeah.
them.
So they're going to have less money to do everything that they do for us in the legislature type of arena, because I know they fight a lot of things on behalf of the public and realtors, okay? And so if we let the counties and the cities, without a controlling arm, I'm just not sure. I'm
Right.
not sure that it would be a wise
Yeah.
idea not to be part of the National Association of Realtors.
Right.
Now, I have a tendency, I would want to say, I'll pay my dues and
Yeah.
continue with. But I never took the time to figure out where that money's being spent.
But we do know different real estate agents that are very active with the National Association. We know real estate agents that travel
Yes.
to different parts of the United States to network with these other agents.
Correct.
There's many, they're very involved in legislature and passing of new laws and bills. And so anyways, but we don't
Yeah.
fully do that. We don't do that. We don't know that.
And that's a fault of mine because we get caught up in all the deals and
Yeah.
there's not enough hours in the day to. Someone would argue that there is, and I would agree because you make time for what you want to do,
I think that there's a very famous saying in Spanish, "Lo barato sale caro," that what you get cheap ends up expensive.
Yeah.
Kind of the translation.
Mhm.
And
You pay what you get for. Or
you get what you pay for.
You get what you paid for.
Potentially, you can argue about the 6%. You can argue about whether it's 5, 4, whatever that should be split. But if the buyer's side of a transaction, if you do have a buyer's agent that has your best interest and is good at what they do, you can argue that they are worth that commission. They're worth paying that commission so that they can help you facilitate.
Right, but should that commission be paid by the seller?
Correct. And that's the lawsuit.
That's it.
The seller saying, why should I pay for
Why
that?
should I pay for that?
And the argument there is that, well, because one argument, right, would be, well, they're bringing their buyer, so they should, and they're going to help facilitate the close of this deal, they should get paid for bringing their buyer.
Right, but what they're saying is, why should I pay it? Why don't you have the buyer pay for his own commission? Have the
Right.
buyer bring in 3% or 2%.
Right. So now,
And have or finance it into, the lending
yeah.
side of it.
And that's one thing, like you look at affordability of housing, which is
Way up.
way up. No, it's
No,
low.
excuse me,
very low.
affordability is way down. Price is way up,
Prices are way
affordability
up.
is way down.
So if somebody's already having a difficult time to buy a property and put a down payment, then can they come up with whatever
No.
the percentage is that the buyer's agent
No,
out of pocket? Like,
it's going to be extremely difficult, especially with the interest rates.
and it's interesting because before we recorded, I was on social media and I saw somebody post a video, and the video was saying, hey, young people out there, if you can't afford to buy a house, go talk to your parents and convince them why buying a house is the right thing. Tell them that, the affordability is super low. Help me get the money to buy a house. And in my mind, I'm thinking, if you can't afford to buy a house, maybe you shouldn't buy it yet.
Of course.
You're going to ask your parents to help you to buy the house. Some parents choose to do that. Some people ask, whatever. I'm not judging on that. I'm just saying the solution isn't necessarily go ask your parents for money to buy that house. How about maybe I need to wait a little longer before I can buy? However, there's a lot of arguments against that. But there's a lot of bias because the person that posted this was a loan officer. They get compensated based on the loans that they give out. So they're obviously gonna try and get creative in this time when interest rates are almost at 8% to buy a house. They're gonna try and find ways to buy that, convince somebody to buy a house.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's going to change things. And we were talking on Monday how we need to recreate ourselves,
Correct.
from within our own energies. This is a market condition that's going to force everybody to recreate themselves, and these are external forces that are coming at us.
Correct.
But see, how do you argue with a person that's selling the house and the agent says it's going to be a 6% commission?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're thinking potentially, now that all these lawsuits are coming up, hey, I'm paying 3% so that the person that's buying gets an agent to negotiate against my behalf.
That's a great argument.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so why should I pay that? I'm getting somebody that's interested in the property, and I'm paying for the agent that's going to negotiate against my agent that I pick,
Yeah.
So I don't want to do that. I just want to pay the 3% for the listing, and if the buyer wants to come in, have them pay their 3% and get their own agent. Why should I pay for them to negotiate against me?
It's an interesting argument.
I think that's a lot of what's going on in here.
Yeah.
I was trying to look at it from a different perspective.
I think that's great because you're taking out yourself from the situation. Because again, the people talking about this, we have a bias. We have it too. That's why I wanted to open with that. But you're actually making an argument where, hey, I can see why they would want to do that. Why would I pay for somebody to come and negotiate against me?
Right.
If I'm selling my home.
Yeah. Have them get their own 3% somewhere, wherever they can. But the problem is going to be that, again...
Wait, real quick on that. When you're saying have them pay that 3% if they can, you just took away some of the people in the market that could have bought your house.
Oh, for sure. That is
So you had 100 people that could have bought your house. You're saying, why should I pay them 3%? Have them pay their own. Now you got 50.
I think you got less.
Just to, yeah.
Right.
I'm just throwing random
Right.
numbers. I agree you would have less.
Yeah.
So that means potentially you're going to get less
For sure.
for your property because you have less people who are able to buy your property.
I don't totally agree with that because the people that could may be able to pay your price. So it's not that you're going to get less for your house.
But you have 100 people that could have bought it, so that would drive the price higher.
If there's competition in bidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good
It's
point.
better to have 100 people that would be able to buy it than 50.
Good point. Good point.
So potentially by you saying I won't pay the 3% or whatever 2% to the buying side, I have less pool of people because less people can buy my house. So potentially I'm going to sell my house for less. Supply and
we
demand.
can't argue that. And
So-
it's and there's a lot of things that are constantly changing because this thing is developing at the speed of light. So if in the process of me trying to provide some information on the lawsuits, I have made a mistake somewhere, you have my apologies on that. But basically, you get the idea. This thing is going to be monumental changes to the real estate industry, and
in the United States.
yeah, I really don't know what's going to happen here.
I mean, you have brought up Australia before
Mm-hmm.
because people use Australia and Sweden and different countries as examples that there's no
Right.
or typically no buying agent,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
I haven't looked too much into that, but
Right.
so some people argue, hey, it's already been done in other countries.
And that market it continues to exist, so it hasn't imploded, let's say.
Others would argue the United States is one of the most fruitful markets because of the way it is right now.
Well, I'll tell you what. Affordability is down,
Yeah.
okay? Interest rates are up. If this is another storm, let's say, that's
Prices
coming.
are still high.
Prices are still high. So if you okay, I'm going to tell you something that should not happen, but it does happen. Let's say that the homeowner says, okay, I'll sell my house, but I don't want to pay 6% because that's negotiable. I want to pay 5%. Okay. And so that 5 gets distributed, let's say 2.5 and 2.5. There are real estate agents out there that won't show the property.
Buying agents.
Buying agents that won't show the property because it's not a 3% commission, it's only a 2.5.
So that you're saying they would rather show a property, same price, that's paying 3%.
Correct. Should that be happening in the market? No, that should not be happening in the market because the commission should be the last thing that you look at. You want to look at what's good for your client and so forth, depending on who you're representing. But I know that happens, and that's just an even split. If it's 3 and 2, and they stand to make 2%, they'll rather show a property that it's at 3% commission. So I'm not trying to judge people. I'm not trying to. These are things that I think that happen, and so can you imagine where is that potentially 3% on the buyer side gonna come from? So it would be less incentive for realtors to be representing buyers because there's nothing on the table.
It would be less incentive for realtors to
Represent a buyer,
Right.
because you don't know where the money's going to come from.
they would have to represent themselves, or the listing agent would represent them.
Okay.
But if the listing agent were
By the way, I think that's how it goes.
over there,
Yeah, in Australia, I think
But-
that's how it works.
but do they get paid for representing the buyer side?
I don't.
No.
I don't think so. It's
So-
3% flat, I think. And
Because another thing that does occur, shouldn't happen, you could say, no, it shouldn't happen, is that you list a property and you want to find, since it's, let's say 5%, 2.5 to the listing agent, 2.5 to the buying side, you only want to show that property to people that you are representing on the buying side.
Well, that should not be.
That should not happen. And so you try to sweeten the deal if it's somebody that's on your that you're bringing on the buyer side, and that's doing a disservice also.
Oh, for
You don't
sure.
return calls. That stuff exists. I don't know what percentage of it, but it does exist.
Right. Well, you and I know that we've called
Encountered
people
that.
and they don't return calls, and
Right.
so I mean,
There are actually some people that have a reputation for that.
Right.
They only sell within their brokerage. If they have 100 agents, they want to make sure that the buying side goes is the buying side is one of the agents within their brokerage, because that's another thing that we didn't even talk about here, but we're talking the buying agent commission. But at the end of the day, let's say it's 3.5 to the listing side, 3.5 to the buying side. The real estate agent typically doesn't keep 100% of that. They still have to split either a percentage or a flat fee or something with the broker where they hang their license,
right,
typically.
right.
So
Usually a percentage.
right. Anything else you want to throw in? It's a lot.
It's yeah. It's developing as we speak.
Yeah.
This coming week, it's going to be
Yeah.
very interesting.
Monday, October 16th.
Yeah. Right now, I'm so used to paying my MLS dues and my NAR dues that, I would be a little leery from straying away from that. And the fact that Redfin and Remax are saying, hey, our agents are not going to have to do that anymore, comes as a shock to me. And I think that happened last week. And, I think that the National Association of Realtors, I think they do a lot of good for us in terms of the legislature that they, fight or propose or whatever to try to keep the congruency, let's say, of the market. So, I'd be a little leery, but guilty of charge of not really knowing where all that money's going and what all that money's doing, other than this general idea that I have. Because again, you get, you open an escrow, and to close that escrow nowadays takes a great deal of work, because there's so many different things that come from so many different angles that could potentially destroy you, whether it be an appraisal or something with title, a cloud on title, whatever it is. There's so many things. Inspections. Lord have mercy. Inspections. We lived that one. So, I just...
We're going to have to adapt.
We're going to have to adapt
and
figure out how to live in it. Huh?
If that commission is taken away from the buying side, it's just going to have to adapt.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's Remax or the other big one. What's it called?
Anywhere?
Anywhere Real Estate. I think it's Remax, but one of those two said, "Hey, we want to settle for this much, and we're going to adapt some changes in the way we do business." And so that right there, we're going to adapt some changes in the way we do business, scares me a little bit, because what kind of changes are you going to do? Because these are big outfits. And if they make that change, probably the other ones will follow suit to a certain extent.
Yeah. And the fact that they're settling or offering a settlement, 55 million, 85 million, it's setting a precedent now, potentially, that, hey, there's something to it, and potentially the buyer's agent side is going to have to find another way to make a commission, make money.
And this world is so interesting when it comes to these situations, because I believe in, folks, you need to double check everything. We do this podcast for information, and we're a father and son team, but we may be off on some specifics, but I believe that it was Remax that said, look, we don't accept any wrongdoing. Okay?
Mm.
We don't believe that we've done any wrongdoing here, but we're gonna settle.
We just want to get this off.
Yeah, because the court costs on this thing and the future costs if we go to trial and attorneys and this and that, they could potentially, hurt him very, very much. And so I believe it was Remax that said, look, we don't accept any wrongdoing, but we're going to go ahead and settle because we want this thing cleared. We want to get rid of this thing, and we're going to adapt some changes. And so, I'm always thinking, if I'm right, I'm going to go down in flames, right? I'm going to fight. But then you have to use the 48 laws of power that we always talk about.
Surrender tactic.
Surrender tactic, and live to see another day.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that comes into play here.
Yeah.
I saw a podcast the other day referring to something like this. The gentleman said something that it was apparently true at the time he put the podcast out. And then some news came out and it made it completely inaccurate. So he had to come back and say, hey, I'm sorry about this, So perfection is not definitely here.
No, we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to do our best, but we both looked into it, researched into it. You have 30 plus years in the real estate industry, and me a lot less.
And one current change that has just massively changed, and everybody's talking about it also, is that the National Association of Realtors, I believe, said last week, hey, listing brokers can now offer 0%, okay, which is a sudden reversal of what they used to the listing. So there's a sudden reversal to what they had before. Yeah, to what they had said, to their standards that they were adhering to before. And so some people think, hey, you're beginning to, or they're asking, are you beginning to cave into some of these lawsuits? Because now they said, hey, first one person said it was 1 cent, then $1. You can give up to $1 to the other side. But now they came out suddenly last week and said, no, you can offer 0%. And that was something that they never agreed to in the past. But now, since last week,
you can offer 0% to the buying agent side.
Yeah.
So they're making it like it's optional now.
Correct.
They're not trying to.
And if that's not a thing, a changing with the tide, then I don't know what is. So we're all learning. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
We're going to have to, how do they say, Wu Qing, right?
Adapt.
We're going to evolve, adapt and evolve. And
well, we're always looking for the opportunities. We're always looking to change and be on our toes and pivot. A lot of the people that, like you said, some of them are old timers, but some of them are just people.
I'm an old timer.
Some people don't want change, and they react adversely to it. And so those people, if they don't adapt, figure out a new way, they won't exist anymore. I personally think that there will be more for sale by owners. If it was 10% of the sales, I do think that number will go higher because people are just gonna say, let me see if I can do it on my own. But there's obviously an argument against that. Just locally, just one example, I saw a for sale by owner sign a few miles from here. It was for sale by owner for months, and then now all of a sudden I see this is common. I see a real estate sign on it, on the house. So it didn't work for sale by owner for X or Y reason. We don't know. And now there's a real estate sign. Will they sell with the real estate agent? We'll see. But
so you throw this on top of all the other changes that are going on in the market, and it's definitely a challenge.
Yes. But we hope that we'll link on the description the sources so people can do their own homework. And then thank you everybody for listening. And then I lost my train of thought. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add, but
no, I'm good with it.
I think it was good. This is informative, and at least it gives an update where it are. And for people who are in the real estate industry, maybe they've heard of it, but there's a lot of people that don't know about this. And then also for people that are just, they want to buy a house or thinking of selling or this and that, this will pertain to them. This will apply one day.
Oh, this is gonna affect all of us.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. It already is.
Yeah.
Because as you see, the National Association of Realtors already
Sure.
made this change moving forward. Redfin and Remax are, I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely changing.
Absolutely.
We just have to adapt.
Cool. Thank
All
you
right.
very much.
Thank you.